The rain hammers against the cracked window of Amara Johnson's tiny apartment as she counts the last $23 to her name. But what happened next shocked everyone. This single decision to help a stranger would transform her life forever. Little did she know that the mysterious man seeking shelter would turn out to be worth billions, completely hidden behind a desperate father's facade. Amara clutches her eviction notice, the red letters blurring through her tears. 3 days. That's all she has left before she and her 8-year-old son Marcus lose their home. The cramped 2-bedroom apartment in southeast Atlanta isn't much, but it's everything they have. She stuffs the notice into her purse, knowing Marcus can't see her cry again. "Mom, I'm hungry," Marcus calls from the living room, his voice cutting through the sound of the storm outside. Amara forces a smile and opens the nearly empty cabinet. 2 cans of soup and half a loaf of bread. That's dinner for the next 2 days. "Just a minute, baby," she calls back, her voice steady despite the panic clawing at her chest. A sharp knock echoes through the apartment. Amara freezes. The landlord isn't supposed to come until Friday. Her heart pounds as she approaches the door, peering through the peephole. A tall man with disheveled hair stands in the hallway, a small boy pressed against his side. Both are soaked to the bone, shivering in the fluorescent light. "Please," the man's voice carries through the door, barely audible above the thunder. "We just need somewhere dry for the night. My son is sick." Every instinct tells Amara to walk away. She has nothing to give. But when she looks at the child, no older than Marcus, her resolve crumbles. Against every rational thought screaming in her head, she unlocks the door. "I'm Jacob," the man says, his eyes meeting hers with desperate gratitude. "This is Ethan. We don't have anywhere else to go." "Amara," she replies, stepping aside. "Come in before you catch pneumonia." Jacob carries Ethan inside, the boy's fevered face flushed against his father's shoulder. Amara notices Jacob's clothes, expensive once but now wrinkled and worn like he's been running for days. His shoes are leather, the kind that cost more than her monthly grocery budget, yet they're scuffed and muddy. "The couch pulls out," Amara says, grabbing towels from her linen closet. "It's not much, but it's warm and dry." "You don't know what this means," Jacob whispers, his voice breaking. Most people would have slammed the door. This decision would change everything, though neither of them realizes it yet. Amara settles them with blankets and the last of her fever reducer for Ethan. As she heats soup for 4 instead of 2, she watches Jacob pace near the window. His movements are careful, calculated, like someone constantly looking over their shoulder. "Daddy, are we safe now?" Ethan asks, his small voice carrying across the apartment. "For tonight, buddy, for tonight." The words send a chill through Amara that has nothing to do with the storm outside. Safe from what? From who? Marcus emerges from his room, curiosity overcoming shyness. "Want to see my cars?" he asks Ethan, and soon both boys are on the floor, sharing toys and stories. Jacob watches his son smile for the first time in what seems like weeks, and Amara sees tears in his eyes. Whatever he's running from, it's destroying him. "Thank you," he says quietly. "You have no idea what you've done for us." But the real shock was still coming. As the evening settles and the boys fall asleep on the fold-out couch, Jacob's phone buzzes. The sound makes him jump like a gunshot. He glances at the screen, and his face drains of color. "I have to take this," he whispers, stepping into the kitchen. Amara pretends to clean dishes, but she can't help overhearing fragments of the conversation. "No, they can't find us here. The accounts are secure. I won't let you near him." Jacob's voice carries an authority that doesn't match his desperate circumstances. When he returns, his hands are shaking, and Amara's suspicions crystallize into fear. Who is this man she's invited into her home, and what has she gotten herself and Marcus into? The storm outside begins to quiet, but inside Amara's small apartment, a much more dangerous tempest is just beginning to brew. The phone call echoes in Amara's mind as she lies awake on the couch, listening to the steady breathing from her bedroom, where Jacob and Ethan sleep. Something about the way Jacob's voice had dropped to that urgent whisper keeps gnawing at her. She'd offered her bed to the strangers while she took the lumpy couch, but sleep won't come. Around midnight, she hears Jacob's voice again through the thin walls. This time, she catches fragments that make her blood run cold. "The hidden accounts are secure. Jacob whispers into his phone. Nobody can trace them back to me. Amara's heart pounds. Hidden accounts? What kind of man talks about hidden money in the middle of the night? She presses her ear closer to the wall, guilt mixing with growing concern. I know what I'm risking, Jacob continues, his voice barely audible. But I had to disappear completely. If they find us. The call ends abruptly, and Amara quickly pretends to be asleep as footsteps approach the living room. Through half-closed eyes she watches Jacob peek out to check on her before retreating. The next morning, Ethan chatters excitedly about the pancakes Amara makes from scratch, but Jacob seems distant, constantly checking his phone and glancing toward the windows. When Ethan runs to the bathroom, Amara seizes her chance. Jacob, is everything okay? You seem worried about something. Jacob's jaw tightens. Look, Amara, I need to be honest with you. We're not just traveling. We're running from someone. Running from who? It's complicated. There's someone in my family who wants to hurt Ethan. I had to get him away. Amara studies his face, searching for deception. What aren't you telling me? The less you know, the safer you are, Jacob says, avoiding her eyes. But I promise you, we're not dangerous. I would never put you in harm's way. Later that afternoon, while Jacob and Ethan nap, Amara knocks on her neighbor Clara's door. Clara Williams has lived in the building for 15 years, and has an uncanny ability to read people. Girl, you look like you've seen a ghost, Clara says, inviting her in for coffee. Amara explains the situation in hushed tones, from the mysterious phone calls to Jacob's vague explanations about running from family. Clara's expression grows serious. Honey, I've seen enough in my time to know when something doesn't add up. A man running from family trouble usually doesn't have money for multiple cell phones. Multiple phones? I saw him this morning by the mailboxes, talking on a different phone than the one he used last night. Expensive-looking thing too. A chill runs down Amara's spine. Who is this man she's welcomed into her home? That evening, while Jacob helps Ethan with a coloring book at the kitchen table, Amara offers to wash Jacob's jacket. As she reaches into the pocket to check for items, her fingers brush against something crinkled. I can do that, Jacob says quickly, but Amara has already felt the paper. Just checking the pockets, she says casually, but her pulse quickens. When Jacob steps outside to make another hushed phone call, Amara's conscience wars with her protective instincts. Ethan is just a child, innocent in whatever web his father has woven. But if Jacob is running from something dangerous, doesn't she have a right to know what she's gotten herself into? Her hands shake as she reaches into Jacob's backpack, which sits by the door. Buried beneath spare clothes and Ethan's toys, her fingers find a folded newspaper clipping. The headline makes her world tilt. Tech billionaire Jacob Walters, missing after board meeting dispute. The accompanying photo shows the same man who's been sleeping in her bed, but dressed in an expensive suit, standing next to a gleaming skyscraper. The article mentions his net worth in the billions and describes him as the CEO of Walters Industries, one of the largest technology companies in the country. Amara's legs give out, and she sinks onto her couch, staring at the clipping. The man she thought was a struggling father on the run is actually one of the wealthiest people in America. But if he's a billionaire, why is he hiding? And what does this mean for her and Ethan? The questions multiply in her mind as she hears Jacob's footsteps approaching the door, and she quickly shoves the clipping back into the bag, her heart hammering against her ribs. As Jacob steps back into the apartment, Amara forces a smile. But inside, everything has changed. She's harboring not just a stranger, but a man whose disappearance has apparently made national news. The newspaper clipping burns in Amara's trembling hands as she stares at the headline, Tech mogul Jacob Walters missing after family dispute. Her heart pounds so hard she's sure it'll wake the entire building. The man sleeping on her couch, the same man she'd given her last bowl of soup to, is worth billions of dollars. She creeps back to her bedroom, mind racing. This changes everything. Why would someone with that kind of money be running? What kind of danger has she invited into her home with Marcus? The next morning, Amara watches Jacob make pancakes with Ethan, her stomach churning with uncertainty. Every smile, every gentle word to his son feels different now. Is he manipulating her? Using her kindness as cover? You're quiet this morning, Jacob notices, flipping a perfect golden pancake. Everything okay? Amara forces a smile. Just tired. But as the day progresses, her resolve crumbles. When Marcus asks about their guests staying another night, she realizes she can't keep pretending everything's normal. After putting Marcus to bed, she corners Jacob in the kitchen. We need to talk, she says, her voice steadier than she feels. And I need the truth this time. Jacob's face goes pale. He glances toward the couch where Ethan is sleeping. Amara, I don't. She holds up her hand. I know who you are, Jacob. Or should I say Mr. Walters? The silence stretches between them like a chasm. Jacob's shoulders sag in defeat. How long have you known? Since last night. Amara crosses her arms. I found the newspaper clipping in your bag. I wasn't snooping, I was looking for headache medicine for Marcus. Jacob runs his hands through his hair. Look, I can explain. Then explain. Her voice cracks slightly. Explain why a billionaire is hiding in my apartment. Explain why you lied to me when I opened my home to you. I didn't lie about everything. Jacob's voice is barely above a whisper. My brother? He's not just dangerous, Amara. He's desperate. When our father died, he left everything to me in the trust. Richard has been trying to get custody of Ethan to control the money. Amara's anger wavers as she sees the fear in Jacob's eyes. He hired people to follow us. We've been running for 3 weeks. Jacob's voice breaks. I couldn't risk staying in hotels anymore. The credit cards, the GPS tracking, I had to disappear completely. But why didn't you tell me? I could have. What? Called the police? The media? Jacob shakes his head. Richard has connections everywhere. The only way to protect Ethan was to become invisible. Before Amara can respond, loud banging erupts from her front door. Both of them freeze. Amara Johnson, we know you're in there. Her blood runs cold. The debt collectors. She'd forgotten they said they'd be back today. Ma'am, we're here about the outstanding medical bills. You have until tomorrow to pay or we're authorized to begin asset seizure. Amara's legs feel weak. Asset seizure. They'll take everything she has left. I have to answer, she whispers to Jacob. Wait. Jacob grabs her arm gently. How much do you owe? That's not your problem. How much, Amara? The banging continues, more aggressive now. 18,000, she admits, shame burning her cheeks. Marcus's emergency surgery last year and I lost my job right after. Jacob reaches into his jacket and pulls out a leather wallet, but Amara steps back. No, absolutely not. Mrs. Johnson, final warning. Amara, please. I said no. Her voice is fierce despite her fear. I don't want your pity money. The hurt that flashes across Jacob's face surprises her. It's not pity, he says quietly. It's gratitude. You saved us when you had every reason to turn us away. As the collectors' voices grow more threatening outside, Amara retreats to her bedroom, overwhelmed. She needs time to think, to process everything that's happening. But as she's gathering the courage to face the men at her door, she spots something that makes her freeze completely. A legal document has fallen from Jacob's bag during their conversation, and the letterhead makes her gasp. Walters Family Trust, estate value, $2.3 billion. The number stares back at her, impossible and real. Jacob isn't just wealthy, he's one of the richest men in the country. And he's been sleeping on her secondhand couch, eating her dollar store cereal, playing games with her son like he belongs here. As the debt collector's threats echo through her thin walls, and Jacob's true worth sinks in, Amara realizes her simple act of kindness has entangled her in something far beyond anything she could have imagined. The legal document trembles in Amara's hands as she stares at the impossible numbers printed in cold black ink. Walters Holdings Limited. Net worth, $2.3 billion. Jacob Michael Walters, Chief Executive Officer. Her knees buckle and she grabs the kitchen counter for support. The man sleeping on her second-hand couch, the one she served leftover mac and cheese to, is worth more money than she could spend in 1,000 lifetimes. This can't be real, she whispers, reading the document again. But there it is, complete with official seals and signatures. Her mind races back to every interaction, every detail she missed. The expensive watch he tried to hide. The way Ethan spoke with such refined vocabulary for a 7-year-old. The mysterious phone calls. Amara's hands shake as she carefully places the document back in Jacob's bag, exactly where she found it. She needs to think, to process this revelation without letting her emotions overwhelm her judgment. The next morning, she makes breakfast with mechanical precision, her mind churning. Jacob emerges from the living room, hair tousled, looking nothing like a billionaire. Ethan bounds into the kitchen, chattering about dreams of flying spaceships. "Morning, Miss Amara, can we have pancakes again?" "Of course, sweetheart," she manages, avoiding Jacob's eyes. But Jacob notices her tension immediately. "Amara? Everything okay?" She serves breakfast in silence, watching this man who could buy her entire neighborhood without checking his bank balance. Finally, she can't contain herself anymore. "We need to talk," she says quietly. "Ethan, honey, why don't you watch cartoons in the living room?" Once they're alone, Amara crosses her arms. "Who are you really, Jacob?" His face goes pale. "What do you mean?" "I mean, are you going to keep lying to me? In my own home?" Her voice rises despite her efforts to stay calm. "I trusted you with my son sleeping under the same roof. I deserve the truth." Jacob runs his hands through his hair, the mask finally slipping. "How did you? It doesn't matter how. What matters is that you've been lying to me since the moment I met you." Tears sting her eyes. "Do you have any idea what I've been going through, what I'm facing here?" "Amara, please." "I'm 3 days from eviction, Jacob. 3 days. I pawned my grandmother's ring to buy groceries last week. And you?" She gestures toward the living room. "You could solve all of this with pocket change, and you've been watching me struggle like it's some kind of entertainment." Jacob stands abruptly. "It's not like that at all." "Then what is it like?" "Because from where I'm standing, it looks like a rich man playing dress up with poor people for kicks." "I'm trying to protect my son." The words explode from him, raw and desperate. "Yes, I'm Jacob Walters. Yes, I have money. But that money has made our lives hell, Amara. It's made us targets. But here's what'll blow your mind about what happens next. Sometimes the truth is more complicated than any lie." "Targets for what?" Amara demands. Jacob's shoulders sag. "My brother-in-law, Ethan's uncle. When my wife died 2 years ago, he contested the will. He wants custody of Ethan because he thinks it'll give him access to the trust fund. He's made threats, Amara, real ones. Said he'd take Ethan from me one way or another." The anger in Amara's chest wavers, replaced by something else. "So you ran?" "I've been running for months. Different hotels, different cities, but Ethan needs stability. He needs normal. When you invited us in, gave us kindness without expecting anything." Jacob's voice breaks. It was the first time in 2 years either of us felt safe. Amara studies his face, seeing the exhaustion she missed before, the fear hiding behind his eyes. "Why didn't you just tell me?" "Because people change when they know. They want things. They act different. But you saw a father and son who needed help, and you helped. No conditions, no expectations, just kindness." The moment hangs between them, heavy with unspoken understanding. But then Amara remembers her own reality. "Jacob, I can't even help myself right now. Tomorrow I have to tell my son we might not have a home anymore. Let me help you." Jacob says immediately. "Let me." 3 sharp knocks at the door cut him off. Both of them freeze. "Police! Open up!" Amara's blood turns to ice as she looks at Jacob's terrified face. Whatever they're running from has finally caught up to them, and now she's right in the middle of it. The police officers stand in Amara's doorway, their stern faces scanning the small apartment. "We need to speak with Jacob Walters," the lead officer announces, his hand resting casually on his radio. Jacob steps forward, his shoulders squared with newfound resolve. "I'm Jacob Walters." His voice carries none of the fear Amara expects to hear. "Sir, we've been looking for you regarding the restraining order violation filed by your brother-in-law, Marcus Chen." Amara's breath catches. "Brother-in-law?" The pieces suddenly click into place as Jacob nods grimly. "Officers, Marcus has been harassing my son and me since my wife passed away 2 years ago. He's been trying to gain custody of Ethan to access my late wife's trust fund." Jacob's voice breaks slightly. "When he threatened to hurt Ethan if I didn't sign over guardianship, I had no choice but to disappear until my lawyers could build a case." The officer pulls out a tablet, scrolling through information. "Mr. Walters, we actually have an arrest warrant for Marcus Chen. Your legal team provided evidence of his extortion attempts and threats against your son. You're free to go, sir. In fact, we need your testimony." Ethan rushes to his father's side, wrapping his small arms around Jacob's waist. "Daddy, does this mean we don't have to hide anymore?" Jacob lifts his son, tears streaming down his face. No more hiding, buddy, we're safe now. Amara watches this reunion, her heart swelling with emotion. As the police leave, Jacob turns to face her, his eyes filled with gratitude and something deeper. Amara, I owe you everything. When I was at my lowest point, convinced I couldn't trust anyone, you opened your home to strangers. You protected my son when you thought I might be dangerous. You showed me that there's still goodness in this world. He reaches into his jacket, pulling out his phone. I meant what I said earlier, I want to help you build that bakery. But more than that, I want to be part of your life. You and Marcus have shown me what real family looks like. Amara's eyes fill with tears. Jacob, I don't need your money. Having you and Ethan in our lives is gift enough. But I need to do this, Jacob insists gently. Not just for you, but for me. My wife always said that wealth means nothing if you don't use it to lift others up. You've lifted me up when I had nothing left to give. 3 months later, Amara stands in her brand new bakery, Sweet Beginnings, watching customers line up for her famous honey cornbread. The morning sun streams through the large windows, illuminating the warm, inviting space that once seemed impossible. Marcus runs between tables, carefully balancing a tray of cupcakes, his face beaming with pride. Mom, Mrs. Patterson wants to order 3 dozen of your chocolate chip cookies for her grandson's birthday. Through the kitchen window, Amara sees Jacob and Ethan at their usual corner table. Jacob working on his laptop while Ethan colors in a sketchbook. They've become her anchors, her chosen family. Jacob looks up and catches her eye, offering that gentle smile that first made her believe in him. He's taught her that sometimes the greatest blessings come disguised as burdens, and that kindness multiplied always returns to the giver. You know, Clara says, approaching with a fresh pot of coffee, I never thought I'd see the day when this neighborhood would have a line of customers waiting for fancy pastries. Amara laughs, wiping flour from her hands. They're not fancy, Clara. They're made with love. That's the secret ingredient. As she surveys her thriving business, Amara reflects on how a single act of compassion changed multiple lives. She gave a stranger shelter, and he gave her dreams wings. But more importantly, they gave each other family. The bell above the door chimes, and a young mother enters with her 2 children, looking hesitant and overwhelmed. Amara recognizes that look. It's the same expression she wore for years. Without hesitation, she approaches the woman. Welcome to Sweet Beginnings. You look like you could use a friend, and maybe some free cookies for these beautiful babies. The woman's eyes fill with grateful tears, and Amara smiles, knowing the circle of kindness continues. Sometimes the greatest treasures aren't found in bank accounts or mansions. They're discovered in the simple act of opening your heart to someone who needs hope. Amara learned that generosity isn't about what you have to give, but about the willingness to share whatever you possess. And in a world that often feels divided, that lesson reminds us all that we're capable of extraordinary things when we choose love over fear.